We used to send kids to school to learn how to read and write, maybe learn a little bit of math, learn something about the world and geography. Teachers, they used to teach kids the real history of America, real stories of George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Ben Franklin, the Civil War. Parents, they used to be able to send their kids to school and not have to worry about what they're being taught. For most parents, their biggest concern was their child falling in with the wrong crowd, hanging out with kids who were experimenting with drugs or alcohol, maybe part of a gang. When I was in school, those were the two primary concerns: drugs, gangs. Today, parents aren't all that worried about their kids hanging out with thugs. Matter of fact, that's probably the last thing on their mind. The biggest threat to your child's future, it's no longer the troubled teenager sitting next to him in homeroom. The biggest threat to your child's future is standing at the front of the classroom or sitting behind the big desk in the principal's office, occupying a seat on the school board. Kids are being indoctrinated with the woke poison. Before I came across this topic, I was reading an article in the Washington Examiner about Villanova. The administration at Villanova, they are requiring all faculty and staff to abide by their gender-inclusive practices guidelines. Professors at Villanova, which has now become another campus of woke U, but professors at Villanova, they are now required to use proper pronouns when addressing students. They are discouraged from using phrases like ladies and gentlemen when addressing the class. That language could be triggering. What if a student doesn't identify as male or female? This language would cause them to feel excluded. You must use gender-neutral language like, "Good morning, birthing organisms. My name is Professor Gomez. I identify as a non-binary Cocker Spaniel and prefer using shit-fuck pronouns. You may call me shit. You may call me fuck. And you can definitely call me anytime you're feeling lonely and need a nice round of ass yoga." Villanova is doing the opposite of what BYU's doing. Talked about BYU yesterday, how they're fighting against the butt brigade. Villanova, they are practicing the woke art of acceptance, claiming that their Catholic faith welcomes any and everyone who identifies as an air freshener. When most of us reached high school, or maybe the latter years of middle school, we were shown the Birds and the Bees video, that poorly produced video about the human reproduction process. It was lighthearted, mostly met with awkward laughs from the students forced to watch it. The government justified showing that video in public schools by saying, not all kids are taught this at home. We have a responsibility to explain where babies come from. The government's using that same reasoning today to justify why they're showing a different video. The production values of this video are much higher. Doesn't look like it was filmed in the 1970s. They even have a modern birthing person who narrates the film. I can't tell if it's a man or a woman. Maybe you guys will be able to tell once I show it to you. But first, let me give you a little bit of a background. Denver South High School, school obviously located in Denver, Colorado. Almost 1,800 students attend the school. If we were to analyze the student body using woke metrics, we would come to the conclusion that this school suffers from a lack of diversity. Nearly half the students born into white supremacy, 32% Hispanic, 9% are black, or what administrators at Woke U like to call victims. Well, KC, that seems like a diverse student body to me. Yeah, sure it does. But we're analyzing using woke metrics here. In order to fix this lack of diversity, 100% of the student body must identify as something other than human. Dog, cat, dandelion, broom, it doesn't matter. At the beginning of the school year, most schools, they prepare students for emergency situations. Fire drills, tornado warnings, what to do and where to go if there's a bomb threat. Denver South High School, they prep their students for a different type of danger. The danger of mythical racism and homophobia. Ooh, we want our students prepared. We want our students to know what to do if a marginalized person is being viciously attacked by a white supremacist. Okay. I know it's been almost 20 years since I was in high school. I don't have kids, so I'm not in touch with the dangers facing high school students today. But I haven't heard of any cases of racist and homophobic attacks in high schools across America. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen. I'm sure it does. But has it really reached the level of epic proportions that schools need to guide students on how to react in these situations? Let's pretend for a second that we're woke dumbasses and we're putting this instructional video together. What would be some of our recommendations? If I had to guess, most are going to say, call the police. When most people witness a violent altercation taking place, their first call's to the police. Perhaps some would recommend that you step in and try to de-escalate the situation. And when I say de-escalate, I'm not talking about giving the assailant a session of sensitivity training. Get him to open up about his traumatic childhood living in slavery. For most, though, they're going to recommend calling the police. Teenagers, they're not trained to deal with these situations. You don't want your kid getting involved in a violent situation and risk being hurt themselves. Check out the recommendations that Denver South High School gave to their students. Roll the film.
Armed police presence often escalates rather than reduces the risk of violence in a situation. Because police have been trained to see people of color, gender nonconforming folks, and Muslims as criminals, they often treat victims as perpetrators of violence. The culture of white supremacy and anti-blackness is perpetuated by our media, political systems, and social media. You can contribute to making these attitudes unacceptable by challenging white supremacy even when you're not in a crisis. Now is the time for all of us who believe in justice to come together. It doesn't have to look one way. You can canvass, you can phone bank, you can write letters, or you can even create art for the movement. Taking it to the streets is always nice.
Are you fucking kidding me? You see what I'm talking about now when I say they are actively propagandizing these kids? Schools used to teach children that the police were your friend. Now, they're teaching them that the cops are the enemy. Police are trained to think that marginalized people are automatically criminals. That is 100% bullshit. Police are trained to think criminals are criminals. This notion that black people are criminals, where do you think that started? It wasn't started by the evil white man, wasn't started by police officers. That notion was created by the same people pushing the narrative today that all black people are victims. For decades, the only time the mainstream media talked about the average black person was when they highlighted stories involving crime. Hollywood, the media, they glorified thug life. They glorified living in the ghetto. The sad thing is, it worked. Once black men started buying into that mentality and became incarcerated, the media then turned on the cops who were locking them up and victimized the entire community. They had been using black people for decades to push their own agenda. I especially liked step 5 of that video. When you see a marginalized person being attacked, be sure to call out white supremacy. Oh, yeah, that's sure to work. Hey there, Mr. Racist, stop attacking that victim. You're showing your white supremacy. My personal favorite was step 6, organize and protest for justice. These people, I swear to God, these people are stupid. Instead of calling the police when you witness a hate crime, go out and organize a protest for social justice. Does any of this make any sense to you? If it doesn't, you're not alone. It didn't make sense to the parents either, who were outraged when they found out their kids were being taught in school that the cops are their enemy. This video being shown to students was created back in 2017 by the Barnard Center for Research on Women. Now, it's unclear if the Barnard Center has a biologist on staff that can properly define a woman. But all it would have taken was one normal person to look at their website to determine their propaganda wasn't appropriate for high school students. Or the faculty at Denver South High School could have done what anyone else would have done, watch the video before presenting it to students. The school board claims we didn't properly vet this video before showing it to the kids. Let's assume for a second that I believe that bullshit. You mean to tell me you presented something to 1,800 students before watching it yourself? Are you that fucking lazy and incompetent? What would you have done if the video wasn't an instruction manual on combating mythical racism and instead was a bootleg copy of Two Men, One Lemon, an exciting porno where two feminine men fight over the affection of Don Lemon, before realizing that he has two lemons to share and they have a romantic menage a trois? Parlez-vous français? I say menage a trois today, I say. That's the French they're teaching students at Denver South High School. Now that case right there is assuming I believe that bullshit from the Denver Public School Board. But I don't. They knew exactly what was on this video. They knew what they were doing. They indoctrinated these kids on purpose. Kids have already seen it now. Damage has already been done. Now the school board, they knew they'd had to deal with upset parents, but that's okay. That's a small price to pay to further the agenda. The entire Denver Public School Board, along with the principal at Denver South High School, they should all be fired. No pension, no tenure, no severance, no benefits. Every fucking one of them should lose their job. I rarely call for anyone to be fired, but this was not a case of incompetence. This was a group of adults trying to brainwash high school kids. They should lose their jobs over this. Teaching kids about mythical racism, teaching kids that cops are the enemy at a time when it's never been more dangerous to be a police officer. Fuck these woke administrators. I don't see them on the street risking their lives to protect us, to protect others. Instead, they are actively trying to corrupt the lives of kids. But let me know what you think. What would you have done if your kid was shown this video in school? Should these people that showed this video or approved showing it, should they be fired over this? Sound off in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com, KC_BTL84 on Twitter. I'll see you guys tomorrow.